Hi guys, so this is Zara for Trans Youth, of course, as always. And so this week's topic is about coming out. And if you're a part of basically the LGBT community as a whole, you have to come out at some point. It'd be nice if we lived in a world where, people didn't automatically assume that you're, I don't want to say average, but I can't really think of a better word. Because people often assume that if you are born in a cisgender male body, that you're going to want to stay, you're going to want to live your life as male, and you're going to be attracted to females, and it's just kind of something that's assumed. And it'd be nice if the world wasn't like that, If people were like, well, you know what, they were born this way, they were born looking like this, but let's see what happens. But that's really not how people think. Not a lot of people, anyway. So basically, anybody in the LGBT community at this point has to come out. And for some, that's a lot more difficult than others. For somebody like me who's in the trans community, it's definitely a lot more difficult. I don't want to say it's more difficult than coming out for somebody who is like a male attracted to males. But I feel like it is, because this involves a whole change of everything. Like, everything about your life changes when you transition. And so, like, for example, my father is a very, very smart man. He's not the kind of person who really jumps to conclusions. He likes to read up on things. And, I remember when I first told him, immediately he wasn't okay with it. And that lasted for a few months, I'd say. Because he had assumed that, I think the main reason he wasn't okay with it, not because he was anti-trans or gay or anything, because my family isn't like that. My family is made up of good people who realize that some people just are that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. And of course I got lucky there, but that's not the point. He was kind of against the whole idea at first, out of fear for me, and what could happen to me if I transitioned. I think what made him really start to support me was when he saw that this was who I was and this was how I was going to live a happy life. And if I had to live a slightly more difficult life because of it, then so be it. It's worth it for me. And as soon as the people who matter in my life were able to see that, that's when they really started to come around. And anytime you're dealing with somebody who... Because for all the smart people who think like that there are in the world, there are just as many dumbasses. I don't want to use the word dumbasses, actually. People who don't put as much thought into these kinds of things. Somebody who's gonna respond like, oh, that's a sin. You're gonna go to hell if you do that. And, sorry, I'm not trying to be anti-religion here, but it's a lot more difficult when you're dealing with those kinds of people who can't look past their own belief system and see that this is what you need to do. You as a person. All they see is that they've always heard that such things are wrong, whether that be by religion, media, what they heard from people they know, their family, their friends, whatever. That's what they know, and that's what they stick to. And that's how most people are. I mean, look at me. I am somebody who is an activist for the LGBT community. And if somebody comes up and tells me, you're wrong, gays are bad, I'm not going to say, you know what, you're right. Gays are awful. I hate them. I'm not going to do that because I have my beliefs and I stick to them. But I can see, but because of what I've been through, I can see when somebody needs to do something for themselves. Whether I agree with it or not, I will be happy for them if I see that it's the right thing for them, you know? And that's the ideal person you want to have, I guess. I hope what I'm saying makes sense to you. So yeah, when I came out, I actually remember the exact day that I told my best friend at the time. She's still a good friend, but it was December 28th, 2008. And we went to this little pub that was down the street from my house. At the time, we were still underage, so we probably just got nachos or something. And I remember telling her that. And that was very empowering for me. Now, I was 16 at the time. So I remember how difficult it was for me to finally say that to another person. Because I had known that I had wanted to grow up to be a beautiful woman, you know, since I was like 6, 7 years old, as is the case for many other trans people. But it took me until the age of 16 to actually say that to another person. And after her, because she reacted so well to it, after her, it wasn't so hard to tell my other friends. You know, I'm kind of a loner, and I always have been kind of a loner. In high school, I had friends, but I had a very small group of close friends. And it was really only those people I told. At the time. Getting to my family was a lot more difficult. I remember thinking before telling my family that I wanted to transition, I remember seriously considering running away and kind of doing it on my own, and I don't know what I would have ended up doing, transitioning, coming back to my family 10 years later as this whole new person. I don't know how that would have worked or anything, but to me, when I was 15 years old, I would have done that 100 times before I would have gone up to my family and said, I'm gonna transition. I'm female, I'm not male. But I remember how good it felt when I finally told them. My dad, was it my dad? Yeah. My dad was the first one out of my family that I told. And I remember telling him in the car on the drive home from Grandma's. That was quite a while. I think it was more than a year after I told my best friend, the first best friend. No, it was less than a year, but it was almost a year. And I remember he was really just scared for me. And that's why he was against the whole thing in the beginning. We've discussed it, well, not recently, but we've discussed it since then. After even he's been fully okay, my biggest supporter, since then we've discussed that time. And he's, what he kind of described it as was the loss of a son, but the birth of a daughter. So I can totally understand where he's coming from that, because, and I can feel his pain there, to be honest. He felt like he was losing a son. I was the third born in my family, and I have 2 older sisters, so I think my parents kind of wanted a son, and then, I was born, and then 16 years later they found out that I was their daughter. So, there goes that idea. But yeah, loss of a son, birth of a daughter. And I get that. I really do. The people in my life are my mom and my dad and my sisters and me. We were all raised by them, so, we were raised to think in a different way. Like, my sisters are kind of the same way in that sense. It was the same with them, basically. Except with them, I don't even really remember them being too upset about the whole thing when I first told them. They were a bit, if anything, weirded out by the whole idea at first. And that's probably mostly because it was all so new to them. Honestly, growing up, I don't remember my sisters even having friends who were gay or anything. So they really hadn't had much exposure to the LGBT community, as I can recall. So that's why I think it was a bit odd for them, but they have definitely come around. And now it's great. So in terms of coming out, it's never easy, but it has to be done. For happiness' sake, it has to be done. You have to be able to live your life free. Like, think of these people who, like these men, for example, who are married to women, have children, but then have some secret affair with some guy or something on the side. Is that guy really happy? No, probably not, if you think about it. For happiness' sake, you have to come out. And you have to be brave. And I realize that being brave isn't always the easiest thing. But it builds. After so long of feeling like you have to do something, one day you're just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm trans. There you go, it's out there. Well, it won't necessarily go like that, but that's the basic idea. You get it. Yeah, okay. So I feel like this video's been running pretty long. I think it's been like 10 minutes now anyway. Yeah, you guys know the drill. Comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Yeah. Love you guys. This week's topic is gender-neutral pronouns, and we should all know what that means. So that's stuff like they, them, their, rather than his, hers, he, she, all that